Hello. Today I will be discussing two key components of direct democracy in Arizona: the initiative and the referendum processes. These tools give Arizona citizens a direct role in shaping the state's laws, allowing us to bypass the legislator and make decisions on issues that matter to them. In this video, I'll explain what an initiative and a referendum are, and how they are created, and how they differ from each other. I will also look at the pros and cons of each of the processes and discuss how they support the idea of direct democracy as outlined in the Arizona Constitution. By the end of the video, you will have a clear understanding of how these processes empower the people in Arizona. So, first, I will look at some of the basic definitions of an initiative and a referendum. So, an initiative allows citizens to propose new laws or changes to existing laws. It's a way for voters to directly create or modify legislation without waiting for lawmakers to act. When a referendum is in play, a referendum is when citizens have the chance to approve or reject laws passed by a state legislature. It's essentially a public vote on legislation that has been passed by lawmakers. An example of this was the first initiative for the state was women's suffrage. The initiative passed by a margin of greater than 2 to 1, and that was on November 5th, 1912. Then there is a process by which referendums and initiatives are created. So, an initiative is created by citizens in Arizona must first gather a required number of signatures from registered voters. In Arizona, it's right around 10% of the votes cast. That's what you need. After gathering the signatures, the proposed law is submitted to the Secretary of State and then reviewed to ensure it meets legal standards. If the initiative is approved, it then goes to the ballot box for voters to decide during an election. Then, a referendum begins when a state legislature passes a law. Citizens who disagree with that law can gather signatures to put the law on the ballot for voters to either approve or reject. Like initiatives, the signature threshold is also a percentage of voters. In Arizona, it's right around 5% of the voters. So there are some differences between an initiative and a referendum, and this is to compare and contrast them a little bit. So some similarities are that both are forms of direct democracy. In addition to that, both involve citizens gathering signatures to put on the issue on a ballot, and both allow voters to make decisions on laws bypassing lawmakers. When it comes to direct democracy, this is when voters have a direct vote in changing laws or making laws. And then some of the differences are that initiatives allow citizens to propose new laws or changes to some existing laws. And then when it comes to referendums, that allows citizens to approve or reject laws passed by the state legislature. Then initiatives are typically more proactive when referendums are more about reacting to the legislation that they disagree with. So, for the initiatives, some pros and cons of each. So, some of the pros for initiatives are that it empowers citizens by allowing them to directly create or change laws. And it gives the public a direct vote on issues that may not be addressed in the legislature. And some of the cons are that it can be influenced by special interest groups with money and resources, so they can kind of put in more votes than typically would have passed by giving money and resources to specific people to vote on these laws. And another con is that sometimes they can be a little bit complex or even poorly drafted laws. So they may not be as specific or as the state legislatures would have done it in the first place. And then for a referendum, some of the pros are that it gives citizens a chance to stop or change laws that they disagree with. In addition to that, it acts as a check on the power of this legislature. So it checks the state legislatures and directly gives the citizens the vote. And some of the cons are that it can lead to the repeal of necessary laws. And this could be a bad thing depending on what the laws are. As well as the signature gathering process can also be manipulated by these special interest groups. So similar to the initiative, they can kind of be manipulated by factions or specific people that want these laws changed. So initiatives and referendums support the idea of direct democracy in a few different ways. So for direct democracy specifically, the Arizona Constitution emphasizes the power of the people to directly influence governmental decisions. rather than relying solely on elected officials. Both the initiative and the referendum processes give citizens a direct role in lawmaking. And for empowerment, these processes allow voters to bypass the legislature and take action on important issues, ensuring that the government decisions reflects the will of the people. For checks and balances, they can also serve on the check on lawmakers, ensuring that if the government passes laws that don't align with the public opinion, citizens can step in and make changes that they see fit. In conclusion, initiatives and referendums are powerful tools of direct democracy that allow the people of Arizona to have a direct say in the state's laws and policies. These processes ensure that the citizens can propose new ideas, challenge existing legislation, and hold their government accountable. While both have their pros and cons, they ultimately serve to empower the voices of Arizona voters and reinforce the principle of democracy outlined in the state constitution. Thank you for taking the time to learn about these important processes and hope that this inspires you to engage with and participate in the Arizona's democratic system.